I've been in the funeral industry for over 10 years now, and most services I have arranged have been run-of-the-mill. Most people seem to want similar things, but one service will always stand out to me. A family asked us to play some hardcore gangster rap for their grandmother at her service, and we happily obliged. I can't quite remember the name of the song, but it had heavy themes of murder, drug use and pretty foul language. Her service was then finished with a recital of the Lord's Prayer. This lady was in her late 80s. Of Munchkins, Toto and the Witch. There wasn't a dry eye after the eulogy when the soloist sang "Over the Rainbow," but many smiles as the coffin was carried out of the church en route to the cemetery as everyone sang, "We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz." At Viking funeral. Putting the ashes of the deceased out to sea in a little boat fashioned out of salt and covered with dry flowers, kindling. Fashioning biodegradable arrows with flaming tips. Everyone shot flaming arrows at the boat and it caught fire, then dissolved into the sea. Now, to be clear, Vikings never did any of this, but Hollywood gave people ideas. Apparently I am not the first, but it was cool. Put the fun back in funeral. Director. Usually ran the back of the house but met with families on a few occasions. Met with the parents of a 16-year-old girl who had died in a car crash. Arrangements were tough at first because how could they not be? We got the official stuff out of the way and then talked about what the deceased would have wanted. Ended up rearranging the funeral home so that the lobby had crock pots of boiled peanuts and a lounge with the Lion King playing. Inside the main parlor was a purple-themed dance party. The pinnacle of the evening was the girl's mom leading everyone in doing the wiggle. It was amazing, and I am still floored by this family for being able to really celebrate their daughter's life in this way. But I'll add my own. I'm not a funeral director, but a few years ago when my grandmother died, miss you granny, my 2 sisters and 2 cousins were preparing her body for the viewing, as they were all cosmetologists. I should say that my family has a bit of a strange sense of humor. And for anyone that says this might be disrespectful, my granny would have laughed her ass off at this. So anyway, they are putting on all her makeup and they are playfully arguing over how it should be done. Eventually, this escalated in them comparing their own makeup to what they were doing for granny. They were joking about who did the better job, and to get an accurate depiction, they were lying down next to the coffin, closing their eyes and folding their arms on their chest, and the others would compare. They would then adjust both their own makeup and granny's to get it right. It was at this point that the funeral director walked in. He opened the door, saw my cousin lying on the floor as though she was dead, with the others giddily adjusting granny's makeup and using my dead cousin as a reference. There was an awkward pause for a few seconds before the girls all burst into laughter. The funeral director was visibly uncomfortable and silently left. After all was said and done, they went to apologize to the director, admitting that they were just having a bit of fun. He said it was all right, just a bit strange. He admitted that he did chuckle a bit as he was walking away. Fast forward to the service, a family friend was giving a eulogy and the girls are looking at Granny up front in the coffin. They are trying to hold back smirks to each other, and a few people are noticing. They look to the back of the room, where the funeral director is standing. He flashes them a smirk himself, then closes his eyes and pulls his hands to chest to imitate a dead person in a coffin. Apparently, it took everything they had to not burst out laughing on the spot. Not in the funeral industry, but the guys who helped with my family friend's funeral said they had never seen anything like it. He had worked in theater since he was a teen and everyone he knew was theater people. We got to use his first theater for the funeral, and everyone who was a technician wore their work blacks. He was buried in his too. Several actors and musicians performed poems and fitting music, and we sent him with a curtain close. It was heart-wrenching as he had young kids, but it was the perfect funeral for him. Obligatory not a funeral director, a co-worker's father passed away. As I was getting to where he was laid out, I heard the voices of Jack Fleming and Myron Cope calling Super Bowl IX, and one was immediately confused. I get to the main room of the funeral home and my co-worker's father is laid out not in a suit, but as if he were ready for a Sunday afternoon of Steeler football. There was a TV on showing their first Super Bowl win, and all kinds of football memorabilia around. My coworker said they wanted to lay his father out as they truly remembered him. First time I ever saw something like that at a funeral. Funeral director, but I organized my boyfriend funeral last month. His death was sudden, so he didn't make any special plans. We spoken before about ours funerals and he said that he would be mad if people would come all black, so I told my friends that feel free to come dressed as you want. One of our friends come in Guzma from Pokemon cosplay laughing face. 20 years, my family for over 125 years. The most interesting one I personally organized was a young guy in his early 20s who loved to fish. So we put him in his canoe for the viewing service, and he was cremated later. The service was at a church, the canoe was way too big for the hearse. The lesson to take away is, you never know exactly what's in a U-Haul. Funeral director, but a friend of mine and my mom's had always said he wanted the gayest of funerals ever. He was pretty young, and had been ostracized from his family when he came out when he was a teen. Rainbows were everywhere, every surface, the chairs were covered in rainbow fabrics, there were a bunch of guys in leather, drag queens, a couple naked guys was a thing here in SF Bay Area for a while, and lots of friends and co-workers. Someone played medleys of music on the piano and people sang along, I remember, It's Raining Men, and Looking for Some Hot Stuff. The San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus also sang some stuff, I don't remember if John was in it or just knew a bunch of the guys in it, this was 30-ish years ago. Oh, and his conservative Midwestern family for some reason showed up and sat in the back. I think they were pretty uncomfortable. My mom tried talking to some of them, but I think the takeaway was that they were pretty lame. We used some of the fabric that was on the chairs on a section of the AIDS quilt.